What if I told you that everything you've been taught about falling asleep is backwards? That the harder you try to sleep, the more awake you become? And what if the secret to the deepest, most restorative sleep of your life isn't about shutting your mind off at all, but actually about understanding how to guide it into a state so profound that scientists can literally measure your consciousness dissolving? Right now, as you listen to this, your brain is producing a cocktail of chemicals that could either keep you awake for hours or guide you into the most peaceful sleep you've had in years. The difference isn't luck, it's knowledge. And in the next 3.5 hours, I'm going to share with you psychology facts so soothing, so fundamentally calming, that your nervous system will have no choice but to surrender to rest. Here's something that will change how you think about sleep forever. In 1937, a neurologist named Alfred Lee Loomis discovered that falling asleep isn't actually a single event. It's not like flipping a switch. Instead, your brain goes through exactly 5 distinct stages, and each one is more fascinating than the last. But here's the mind-blowing part. You can actually feel these stages happening if you know what to look for. And once you understand them, you gain a superpower that insomniacs spend thousands of dollars trying to find. Your brain right now is generating electrical waves. Scientists measure them in something called hertz, which is just cycles per second. When you're fully awake and stressed, your brain buzzes at about 15 to 30 hertz. That's called beta state. But as you relax and listen to soothing information like this, something magical happens. Your brain starts slowing down to 8 to 12 hertz, entering what's called alpha state. This is the gateway to sleep, and you're entering it right now. Before we go deeper into this journey toward the most relaxing sleep of your life, do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. I want to know where you are in the world right now and what time it is for you. Are you in New York at midnight? London at 5 a.m.? Tokyo at lunchtime trying to take a power nap? Drop your location and time in the comments. There's something beautiful about knowing we're all across this planet, sharing this moment of calm together. Now, let's continue this journey into tranquility. Think of your brain like a pond. When you're anxious or trying to force yourself to sleep, you're like someone throwing rocks into that pond, creating ripples and waves everywhere. But when you feed your mind gentle, interesting, calming information, you're like someone carefully smoothing the surface of that water. The ripples slow, the surface becomes still, and in that stillness, sleep naturally emerges. Dr. Matthew Walker, a neuroscience professor at UC Berkeley and one of the world's leading sleep researchers, made a discovery in 2017 that changes everything we know about falling asleep. He found that the brain doesn't shut down during sleep. Instead, it shifts into a different mode of processing. It's like your brain has a day job and a night job, and the transition between them requires a very specific psychological state. Here's what most people get wrong. They think sleep is about emptying your mind. But Walker's research showed that trying to think about nothing actually activates your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for executive control and effort. In other words, trying not to think is a form of thinking, and it keeps you awake. So what's the solution? You need to give your brain something to process that's engaging enough to prevent anxious thoughts, but calm enough to not trigger alertness. You need information that feels like a gentle river carrying you downstream. And that's exactly what these psychological facts are designed to do. Let me share something beautiful with you. In 2019, researchers at the University of Sussex measured what happens to the human nervous system when people listen to relaxing, educational content before bed. They discovered that heart rate decreased by an average of 6%, blood pressure dropped, and something called heart rate variability, which is a marker of nervous system health, improved by 22%. But here's the fascinating part. This only happened when the content was interesting enough to prevent worry, but soothing enough to not cause excitement. You're experiencing this right now. As you listen to my voice and absorb these facts, your sympathetic nervous system, the one responsible for fight or flight, is slowly powering down. Meanwhile, your parasympathetic nervous system, the one that controls rest and digest, is taking over. You might notice your breathing has already slowed. Your shoulders might have dropped slightly. These aren't accidents. These are measurable physiological responses to psychological calm. Here's a fact that might blow your mind. Your body actually has a second brain. No, really. Scientists call it the enteric nervous system, and it's a mesh-like network of neurons lining your entire digestive system. It contains over 100 million neurons, more than your spinal cord. And here's why this matters for sleep. This second brain communicates directly with your actual brain through something called the vagus nerve. When you're calm and absorbing soothing information, your vagus nerve sends signals from your gut to your brain that say, everything is safe. We can rest now. This is why you can actually feel relaxation in your stomach area when you're truly calm. The ancients called this gut feeling, and modern science has proven they were absolutely right. Now we're going to explore something that seems impossible at first, but once you understand it, will change your entire relationship with sleep forever. What if I told you that there's a psychological law discovered over 100 years ago that explains exactly why you can't fall asleep when you try too hard? It's called the law of reversed effort, and it was identified by a French psychologist named Émile Coe in 1920. Here's how it works. Whenever your willpower and your imagination are in conflict, your imagination always wins. Always. Think about it like this. If I put a wooden plank on the ground and asked you to walk across it, you'd do it easily. But if I put that same plank between two buildings, 10 stories up, suddenly it becomes nearly impossible, even though the physical task is identical. Why? Because your imagination is now imagining falling, and that overpowers your will to simply walk forward. Sleep works the exact same way. When you lie in bed thinking, I must fall asleep, I have to fall asleep, you're using willpower. But simultaneously, your imagination starts conjuring images of being awake all night, of being tired tomorrow, of another night of insomnia. And guess which one wins? Your imagination. The very effort to sleep creates wakefulness. But here's what will blow your mind. This isn't a flaw in your psychology. It's actually a protective mechanism that kept your ancestors alive. Dr. Charles Czeisler, a Harvard sleep researcher who worked with NASA, discovered that humans have what he calls a vigilance system that kicks in whenever we detect threat. If a caveman heard a sound outside and thought, I must fall asleep right now, he'd be eaten. So the brain evolved to interpret trying to sleep during perceived danger as a contradiction, and it chooses safety over sleep. The beautiful news is that you can work with this system instead of against it. By feeding your mind calming psychological facts, by giving your imagination something peaceful to focus on, you remove the perceived threat. Your vigilance system relaxes, and sleep comes naturally, like a cat curling up in a sunbeam. Here's a technique that uses this principle, developed by Dr. Andrew Weil in 2015. It's called the 4-7-8 breathing method, and it's based on ancient yogic practices combined with modern neuroscience. But the psychology behind why it works is what matters. When you control your breath in a specific pattern, breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 7, exhale for 8, you're giving your brain a task that requires just enough attention to prevent worry, but is rhythmic and calming enough to trigger the parasympathetic response. The reason this works psychologically is because counting is a form of focused attention that doesn't require problem solving. It's like giving a hyperactive child a simple, repetitive task. Your anxious mind has something to do, so it stops generating worried thoughts. And the extended exhale physically activates your vagus nerve, signaling safety to your entire system. Think of it like this. Your mind is like a dog that needs a job. If you don't give it something to do, it will find something on its own, and usually that something is worry. But if you give it a gentle, repetitive task, Like following interesting calming facts or counting breaths, it happily does that instead, and sleep sneaks in through the back door. Now let's go deeper into something absolutely fascinating about how your brain processes images and stories, and why this is the most powerful sleep tool you've never been taught. In 2008, a neuroscientist named Dr. Giulio Tononi at the University of Wisconsin made a discovery that won him international recognition. He found that when you imagine something vividly, your brain activates almost the same neural networks as when you actually experience that thing in reality. Your brain can't completely tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. This is why athletes use visualization to improve performance. But here's the mind-blowing part for sleep. When you imagine peaceful, calm scenarios in detail, your brain experiences the peace as if it were real. Your stress hormones drop. Your muscle tension releases. Your breathing slows. You're essentially hacking your own nervous system by feeding it peaceful images. The ancient practice of meditation understood this thousands of years ago, but now we have the brain scans to prove it works. Dr. Sarah Lazar at Harvard found in 2011 that people who regularly practice visualization and meditation actually have measurably thicker gray matter in regions of the brain associated with emotional regulation and self-control. In other words, peaceful thinking literally reshapes your brain over time. But you don't need months of practice. You can use this principle right now. As you listen to these facts, your mind is already creating images. Maybe you're picturing neurons firing or imagining yourself in a peaceful state. These images are doing real physiological work. They're telling your amygdala, the alarm system of your brain, that everything is okay. Here's a beautiful psychological fact. Humans are story-making machines. Your brain is constantly creating narratives to make sense of information. This is why you can remember stories much more easily than raw facts. A study by Dr. Jerome Bruner at New York University found that information delivered in story form is up to 22 times more memorable than facts alone. This matters for sleep because your brain needs to transition from the analytical, problem-solving mode of daytime to the narrative, dreamlike mode of nighttime. By absorbing information that has narrative flow, that moves from one idea to the next like a gentle stream, you're helping your brain make that transition. Think of it like a dimmer switch on a light. You can't just flip from bright alertness to complete darkness instantly. You need gradual dimming. These psychological facts, delivered in this flowing, narrative style, are that dimmer switch for your consciousness. Let me share something that demonstrates this power. There's a phenomenon in psychology called priming, discovered by psychologist John Bargh at Yale in 1996. He found that simply exposing people to certain words or concepts unconsciously influenced their later behavior. In one famous experiment, people who were primed with words related to elderly people, like Florida, wrinkle, bingo, actually walked more slowly down the hallway afterward, even though they had no conscious awareness of the connection. Your brain is being primed right now. Every word about calm, every concept about peace, every fact about relaxation is priming your nervous system to enter sleep states. It's happening beneath your conscious awareness. And that's exactly why it's so powerful. You're not trying to sleep. You're simply absorbing interesting information, and sleep is emerging as a natural side effect. Here's where things get really fascinating. Let's talk about what's actually happening in your brain chemistry right now as you relax. Your brain produces dozens of different neurotransmitters, which are chemical messengers that neurons use to talk to each other. But there are four main ones that control your sleep-wake cycle, and understanding them will give you a completely new appreciation for what's happening inside your skull right now. First, there's cortisol. You've probably heard of it as the stress hormone. Dr. Robert Sapolsky, a Stanford neuroendocrinologist, has spent his career studying cortisol, and in 2004, he published findings that changed how we understand stress and sleep. He found that cortisol follows a natural rhythm called the circadian curve. It should be highest in the morning to wake you up and lowest at night to allow sleep. But when you're chronically stressed or anxious, cortisol stays elevated at night, blocking sleep. Here's the beautiful part. Listening to calming, educational content like this actually lowers cortisol. A study published in 2016 in the journal Psychoneuroendocrine found that engaging with soothing information for just 30 minutes reduced cortisol levels by an average of 14%. That's a measurable chemical change in your body, happening right now as you listen. Second, there's serotonin. This is often called the happiness chemical, but that's a simplification. Dr. Barry Jacobs at Princeton discovered in the 1990s that serotonin is actually more about contentment and satisfaction than excitement or joy. And here's the crucial part. Your brain uses serotonin to manufacture melatonin, the hormone that directly causes sleepiness. Think of it like this. Serotonin is the raw material, and your pineal gland is a factory that converts it into melatonin. When you're in a state of calm contentment, listening to interesting but soothing information, you're producing more serotonin, which means you're creating more of the raw material for sleep. It's a beautiful chemical cascade. Third, there's GABA, which stands for gamma-aminobutyric acid. You don't need to remember the full name. Just know that GABA is your brain's main calm-down signal. Dr. Mike Nettergaard at the University of Rochester discovered something amazing about GABA in 2013. It's not just about calming neural activity. When GABA levels are optimal, your brain can actually clean itself more efficiently during sleep. Your brain has a waste removal system called the glymphatic system, which is like a dishwasher for your neurons. It works primarily during sleep, flushing out toxins and metabolic waste that build up during the day. But it requires GABA to signal that it's safe to activate. So when you're calm and producing GABA, you're not just preparing for sleep, you're preparing for the highest quality, most restorative sleep possible. Fourth, and this is the really mind-blowing one, there's oxytocin. Most people think of oxytocin as the love hormone released during hugging or bonding. But Dr. Kirsten Ovnes Moberg, a Swedish researcher, discovered in 2003 that oxytocin is also released during states of calm, safe, gentle stimulation. And guess what oxytocin does? It lowers blood pressure, reduces heart rate, and directly inhibits cortisol production. So right now, as you listen to this calm voice delivering interesting psychological facts in a safe environment, your brain is likely producing small amounts of oxytocin. You're giving yourself the chemical equivalent of a gentle hug. And that chemical hug is telling every cell in your body, it's safe to rest now. Here's something that ties all of this together. These four neurochemicals don't work in isolation. They work in concert, like an orchestra. When one starts to shift, it influences the others. By engaging with calming content, you're conducting that orchestra, gradually shifting the entire symphony from a fast, alert tempo to a slow, peaceful lullaby. Let's explore one of the most fundamental psychological needs you have, one that determines whether you can sleep or not, the feeling of safety. Dr. Stephen Porges, a psychiatrist and neuroscientist, developed something called polyvagal theory in 1994, and it's revolutionized how we understand the connection between feeling safe and being able to rest. He discovered that your nervous system is constantly asking one question: am I safe right now? Your nervous system has three main states, and understanding them will change how you approach sleep forever. The first state is called ventral vagal state, and it's your state of safety and social connection. When you're in this state, your heart rate is variable and healthy, your digestion works well, and you can easily relax and fall asleep. This is your natural resting state when you feel safe. The second state is the sympathetic state, which is your fight or flight response. When you're in this state, your heart races, your breathing becomes shallow, your muscles tense, and sleep becomes impossible. This is the state most people are stuck in when they have insomnia. The third state is the dorsal vagal state, which is shut down or freeze. This is actually worse than fight or flight. It's a state of immobilization, depression, and helplessness. Some people with severe chronic insomnia actually bounce between fight or flight and freeze, never reaching the safe state necessary for healthy sleep. Here's the crucial insight. You can't think your way from fight or flight into safety. You can't use willpower to force your nervous system to calm down. But you can signal safety to your nervous system through specific types of input. And one of the most powerful signals is gentle, rhythmic, predictable, soothing information delivered by a calm human voice. Think of it like this. Imagine you're a small animal in the wild. If everything around you is chaotic and unpredictable, you stay alert. But if the environment is calm, rhythmic, and predictable, like the gentle sound of rain or wind through leaves, your nervous system interprets this as safety. There are no predators nearby. It's safe to rest. This video is designed to mimic that safe environment. The calm tone, the flowing delivery of interesting but non-threatening information, the predictable rhythm, all of these are signals to your ancient primal nervous system that you are safe. And when you feel safe, sleep becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, a psychiatrist who has studied trauma for over 40 years, wrote in his 2014 book, The Body Keeps the Score, that the body needs to feel safe before the mind can relax. This is why all the positive thinking in the world won't help you sleep if your body doesn't feel safe. But when your body receives consistent signals of safety, calm thoughts naturally follow. Here's a beautiful fact about your vagus nerve, which we mentioned earlier. It's the longest nerve in your body, wandering from your brainstem all the way down through your chest and abdomen, connecting your brain to your heart, lungs, and digestive system. About 80% of the vagus nerve's fibers are sensory, meaning they send information from your body up to your brain, not the other way around. This means your brain is constantly listening to your body. When your body is tense, your brain interprets this as danger. But when your body is relaxed, when your breathing is slow, when your heart rate is calm, your brain interprets this as safety. You can actually change your mental state by changing your physical state. This is why deep breathing works, why progressive muscle relaxation works, and why listening to calming content works. You're sending safety signals from your body to your brain? Let me share a technique that uses this principle. It's called peripheral vision relaxation, and it was developed by studying how animals in nature rest. When a deer is grazing peacefully, it's not focused intently on any one thing. Its vision is soft and wide, taking in the whole environment peripherally. This soft, wide vision is actually a signal to the nervous system that there's no immediate threat. You can do this right now, even in the dark with your eyes closed. Instead of focusing your attention like a laser beam on any one thought, let your awareness be soft and wide. Notice the whole field of your inner experience, the sounds around you, the feeling of your body, the flow of these words. Don't concentrate hard, just allow everything to be present at once. This soft, open awareness is itself a signal of safety. Now we're going to explore something really profound, what it actually means, from a neuroscience perspective, to let go and fall asleep. There's a part of your brain called the default mode network, and it was only discovered in 2001 by Dr. Marcus Rachel at Washington University. Before this discovery, scientists thought the brain was basically inactive when you weren't actively doing a task. But Rachel found something surprising. There's a network of brain regions that becomes more active when you're not focused on the outside world. This default mode network is what's running when you're daydreaming, reminiscing, imagining the future, or thinking about yourself. It's your brain's idle mode. And here's what's fascinating. This network needs to be active for you to fall asleep. If your task-focused networks are still engaged, trying to solve problems or stay alert, you can't sleep. But here's the challenge. You can't force the default mode network to activate. It's like trying to force yourself to daydream. The moment you try, you're engaging the task-focused networks, which shuts down the default mode network. It's another paradox of effort. So how do you activate it? By giving your mind something that's engaging enough to prevent anxious rumination, but gentle and flowing enough that it doesn't require focused problem solving. By letting your mind wander through interesting landscapes of ideas without demanding that it arrive at any particular destination. By allowing thoughts to come and go like clouds passing through the sky. Dr. Judson Brewer, a psychiatrist at Brown University, has studied what he calls the letting go process extensively. In 2011, he published research showing that experienced meditators show less activity in the default mode network than beginners, not because they suppress it, but because they've learned to let thoughts arise and pass without grabbing onto them. Think of your mind like a hand. All day, you're gripping things tightly. Gripping problems, gripping worries, gripping plans. Sleep requires you to open that hand and let things rest in your palm without squeezing. These psychological facts are like small, smooth stones being placed gently in your open hand. They're present, but they don't require you to grip them. You can just feel their weight, their texture, and let them be. Here's something that will shift your perspective. Dr. Matthew Walker discovered that people who describe themselves as good sleepers don't actually have different brain chemistry from people with insomnia. What they have is different thought patterns. Good sleepers have what's called low sleep effort. They don't try to sleep, they just allow it. Insomniacs, on the other hand, have high sleep effort. They try really hard, which paradoxically keeps them awake. This isn't about blaming people with insomnia. It's about understanding that the solution isn't trying harder. It's about learning to try less. It's about understanding that sleep is something you allow, not something you do. You can't do sleep any more than you can do digestion. You can only create the conditions and then let your body's natural wisdom take over. There's a beautiful Taoist concept that perfectly describes this. It's called Wu Wei, which translates roughly to effortless action, or action through non-action. It's the idea that the most powerful way to accomplish something is often to stop trying to force it, and instead align yourself with natural forces. Water doesn't try to flow downhill. It just does, because that's its nature when nothing blocks it. Sleep doesn't try to come. It just does when you remove the obstacles. And the biggest obstacle is usually effort itself. Here's a fact that might surprise you. Dr. Stephen Hayes, a psychologist at the University of Nevada, developed an entire therapy approach in 1999 based on a radical idea. The solution to psychological suffering isn't to eliminate uncomfortable thoughts and feelings. It's to change your relationship with them. This approach is called acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, and it's revolutionized how we treat insomnia and anxiety. The core insight is this: struggling against your experience, trying to push away uncomfortable thoughts or feelings, actually makes them stronger and more persistent. What we resist persists. Think about it. When you can't sleep and you think, I shouldn't be awake right now, this is terrible, I have to fall asleep, you're fighting with reality. And reality always wins that fight. Every moment you spend struggling against being awake is a moment of stress, which produces cortisol, which keeps you awake longer. You're caught in a loop of your own making. But here's the liberating truth. You can be awake right now and be okay. You can notice thoughts about sleep without believing them or fighting them. You can feel the sensation of restlessness and let it be there without needing it to go away. And paradoxically, the moment you stop fighting your experience, the moment you accept, I'm awake right now, and that's okay, your nervous system begins to calm. Dr. Kristen Neff, a researcher at the University of Texas, has studied self-compassion extensively, and in 2003, she published findings that changed how we understand the relationship between self-criticism and well-being. She found that people who are harsh with themselves when they can't sleep actually sleep worse and have higher levels of depression and anxiety. But people who practice self-compassion, who say to themselves, this is difficult right now, and that's okay. Many people struggle with sleep. I'm going to be kind to myself. These people actually fall asleep faster and sleep more deeply. Kindness toward yourself isn't weakness. It's a neurochemical intervention. It reduces cortisol and increases oxytocin. Right now, as you listen to this, you can practice acceptance. Notice whatever you're experiencing. Maybe there's some restlessness. Maybe some skepticism. Maybe some hope that this will finally help you sleep. All of these are okay. You don't need to change any of them. Just notice them like you might notice clouds in the sky. They're there, they're moving, and you can be aware of them without needing to push them away or grab onto them. This is called psychological flexibility, and it's one of the strongest predictors of mental health and well-being. Rigid thinking says, things should be different than they are. Flexible thinking says, things are as they are right now, and I can work with this. Here's a mind-blowing fact from Dr. Daniel Siegel, a psychiatrist at UCLA. Your brain actually creates reality through something called top-down processing. What you expect to experience influences what you actually experience. If you lie in bed expecting another terrible night of insomnia, your brain primes your body for that experience. But if you approach the night with acceptance and openness, thinking, I wonder what will happen tonight. Maybe I'll sleep, maybe I won't, and either way I'll be okay, your brain doesn't activate the stress response. This isn't positive thinking or denial. It's radical acceptance of what is, combined with openness to what might be. And that combination is neurologically very different from anxious striving. Let's explore something subtle but powerful, the way the rhythm and pattern of language affects your brain waves and consciousness. Dr. Peter Hagoort, a neuroscientist at the Max Planck Institute in the Netherlands, discovered in 2005 that your brain synchronizes with the rhythm of speech you're hearing. When you listen to someone talk, your neural oscillations actually entrain to the prosody and rhythm of their voice. In simpler terms, your brain waves start to match the pattern of what you're listening to. This is why lullabies work for babies, and why certain types of music make you want to dance, while others make you feel calm. Your brain is a pattern-matching machine, and it naturally synchronizes with rhythmic input. This video is designed with this principle in mind. The pacing of the words, the rhythm of the sentences, the gentle flow from one idea to the next, these are all carefully crafted to encourage your brain to slow down. As you continue listening, your neural rhythms are gradually entraining to a slower, calmer pattern. Think of it like this. Imagine you're gently pushing someone on a swing. If you push at random times, the swing goes chaotic. But if you push in rhythm with the natural oscillation of the swing, you amplify its movement with minimal effort. This video is pushing your brain's natural rhythm towards slower, sleeper states. Dr. Michael Gazzaniga, a cognitive neuroscientist who has studied split-brain patients, discovered something fascinating about how the two hemispheres of your brain process language. Your left hemisphere processes the literal content of words, the facts and logic, but your right hemisphere processes the emotional tone, the rhythm, the prosody, the music of language. For you to truly relax, both hemispheres need to be engaged in a balanced way. Pure facts engage only the left brain and can feel dry or boring. Pure emotion engages only the right brain and can feel manipulative or saccharine. But when you combine interesting facts delivered with calm, rhythmic prosody, both hemispheres are gently engaged in a balanced way that promotes whole brain relaxation. There's also something called the frequency following response, discovered by Dr. Gerald Oster in 1973. He found that when you expose the brain to rhythmic stimuli at certain frequencies, your brainwaves will actually shift to match those frequencies. This is the principle behind binaural beats and other brain entrainment technologies. But you don't need special technology. The simple rhythm of spoken language, when delivered at the right pace with the right tone, can entrain your brain from alert beta waves, 15 to 30 Hz, down through relaxed alpha waves, 8 to 12 hertz, into drowsy theta waves, 4 to 7 hertz, and eventually into sleep delta waves, 0.5 to 3 hertz. You might notice that my speaking pace has been gradually slowing throughout this video. This isn't an accident. It's a deliberate technique to help your brain slow down along with it. As the rhythm of the word slows, your internal rhythm slows. As the pauses between sentences lengthen, your thoughts have more space to settle. There's something deeply satisfying to the human mind about things making sense, about patterns and connections revealing themselves. Dr. Jerome Bruner, who we mentioned earlier, called this the narrative imperative. Humans don't just like stories. We need them. We think in stories. We remember in stories. We make sense of our lives through stories. And here's why this matters for sleep. When your mind is trying to process disconnected, chaotic information, or when you're stuck in worried, repetitive thoughts, you're in a state of narrative incoherence. Things don't make sense. The future is uncertain and threatening. Your mind spins, trying to create order from chaos. But when you engage with content that has narrative coherence, that flows from one idea logically and meaningfully to the next, your mind can relax. It doesn't need to work so hard to make sense of things. The sense-making is already done. You can simply follow along, like floating down a gentle river. This is why counted sheep don't work for most people. There's no narrative. It's just 1 sheep, 2 sheep, 3 sheep. No meaning, no connection, no coherence. Your mind quickly gets bored and wanders back to worried thoughts. But psychological facts delivered in a flowing narrative, each one building on the last, each one revealing another piece of the puzzle of how your mind works. This captures your attention just enough to prevent worry, while being calm enough to allow sleep. Dr. Paul Zak, a neuroeconomist at Claremont Graduate University, discovered something amazing in 2012. When people hear a well-told story, their brains release oxytocin, the bonding and calming chemical we discussed earlier. But not just any story. It has to be a story with a clear structure, with characters or concepts you can follow and care about, with a sense of journey and meaning. These psychological facts are being delivered as a story. The story of how your mind works, how sleep happens, how you can work with your own neurobiology instead of against it. And as you follow this story, as the pieces fit together and the picture becomes clearer, your brain is releasing small amounts of oxytocin, telling your body it's safe to relax. There's also something called closure in psychology. Humans have a deep need for things to reach completion, to tie up loose ends, to arrive at resolution. This is why cliffhangers in TV shows keep you watching, and why unfinished tasks bother you more than completed ones. But sleep requires a kind of psychological closure, a sense that the day's tasks are done enough, that you can set them down until tomorrow. One reason people can't sleep is that they feel incomplete. There are unresolved problems, unfinished tasks, unanswered questions spinning in their minds. As we move through these sections, as each concept reaches a kind of completion before flowing into the next, your mind is experiencing micro moments of closure. Each satisfying explanation, each aha moment, each time a concept clicks into place, you're getting tiny neurological rewards that signal this is complete. We can move on. And that repeated experience of completion and moving on is training your mind to let go. Here's a psychological truth that might change your life. Most of what you think you control, you actually don't. And most of what you think you don't control, you actually have more influence over than you realize. Dr. Ellen Langer, a psychologist at Harvard, has spent her career studying what she calls the illusion of control. In experiments dating back to the 1970s, she's shown that people consistently overestimate their ability to control random outcomes through effort or skill. They think they can influence a coin toss if they concentrate hard enough, or improve their lottery chances by choosing their own numbers. This illusion extends to sleep. You think if you just try hard enough, use the right technique, think the right thoughts, you'll be able to force yourself to fall asleep. But sleep doesn't work that way. You can't control sleep any more than you can control your heart beating or your stomach digesting food. These are autonomic processes, controlled by parts of your nervous system that operate beneath conscious will. But here's the paradox. While you can't directly control sleep, you can influence the conditions that allow sleep to happen naturally. You can't make yourself digest food, but you can chew thoroughly and eat slowly to help digestion. You can't make your heart beat, but you can avoid stimulants and practice breathing exercises to support healthy heart rate. And you can't make yourself sleep, but you can create the psychological and physiological conditions where sleep naturally emerges. This shift from trying to control to influencing conditions is enormously freeing. It removes the burden of effort. It releases you from the exhausting task of trying to force your body to do something it already knows how to do. Dr. Tara Brach, a psychologist and meditation teacher, talks about the difference between efforting and allowing. Efforting is the tight, gripping, striving energy that characterizes most people's relationship with sleep. Allowing is the open, receptive, trusting energy that actually permits sleep to happen. Think of trying to catch a butterfly. If you chase it frantically, it flies away. But if you sit still with an open hand, it might land on you. Sleep is the butterfly. Effort chases it away. Stillness and allowing invite it to land. Right now, you can practice allowing. Instead of trying to make anything happen, just notice what's already happening. Notice the weight of your body. Notice your breathing, which is happening all by itself without any effort. Notice sounds around you. Notice these words flowing past your awareness. You're not doing any of this. It's all just happening. And sleep is the same. It will just happen when you stop trying to make it happen. Dr. Rick Hansen, a neuropsychologist, talks about the difference between the doing mode and the being mode of mind. Doing mode is active, goal-oriented, problem-solving. It's essential for daytime activities. But you can't fall asleep in doing mode. Sleep requires being mode, where you're simply present with experience without trying to change it or achieve anything. These psychological facts are helping you transition from doing to being. You're learning, yes, but without strain. You're absorbing information, but without effort. You're aware, but not striving. This is the perfect psychological state for sleep to emerge. There's something profoundly calming about understanding how you work. Not judging yourself, not trying to fix yourself, just understanding. Dr. Daniel Siegel calls this making sense of your life, and he's found that people who have coherent narratives about their own psychology are significantly more resilient and have better mental health. When you understand that your difficulty sleeping isn't a personal failing, but rather a nervous system responding exactly as it was designed to respond to perceived threat, something shifts. The self-criticism softens. The frustration eases. You can look at yourself with compassion instead of judgment. Think about it. If you saw a friend struggling with insomnia, would you berate them and tell them they're failing? Would you tell them to just try harder? Of course not. You'd be kind. You'd be understanding. You'd remind them that sleep difficulties are common and that they're doing their best. But when it comes to ourselves, we often forget this kindness. We become harsh internal critics, especially at 2 a.m. when we can't sleep. Dr. Kristen Neff's research shows that this self-criticism activates the same threat response in the brain as external criticism. Your body doesn't know the difference between someone else attacking you and you attacking yourself. Either way, it perceives threat, produces cortisol, and stays on guard. But self-compassion activates the caregiving system in your brain, the same system that's activated when you comfort a child or pet. It produces oxytocin and endorphins. It tells your body you're safe and cared for. And in that safety, sleep becomes possible. Here's a practice you can use. Imagine you're observing yourself with the same kind, curious attention you might give to a fascinating documentary about nature. Look, There's a human lying in bed, nervous system activated, thoughts racing. Interesting. That's what humans do when they feel unsafe. The body is just trying to protect itself. How remarkable these survival mechanisms are. This shift from "I'm failing at sleep" to "my body is doing exactly what it evolved to do in response to perceived threat" is transformative. It moves you from self-judgment to self-understanding. And in that understanding, there's peace. Dr. Carl Rogers, one of the founders of humanistic psychology, said that the curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. He meant that real transformation doesn't come from harsh self-criticism and forced effort. It comes from compassionate self-acceptance, which creates the safety necessary for natural change to occur. You don't need to fix yourself. You're not broken. Your nervous system is working perfectly. It's just protecting you from threats that might not actually be present. And as you understand this, as you recognize the beautiful, protective intelligence of your own biology, you can work with it instead of against it. Let's explore something that might seem obvious, but has profound implications. Your mind and body aren't separate. They're one integrated system, constantly influencing each other in a continuous feedback loop. Dr. Antonio Damasio, a neuroscientist at USC, has spent his career studying this mind-body connection, and in 1994, he published a book called Descartes' Error that challenged the traditional view of emotions and reason being separate. He found that people with damage to the emotional centers of their brains couldn't make good decisions, even when their logical reasoning was intact. What does this have to do with sleep? Everything. Because it means you can't think your way to sleep with pure logic. You need to feel your way to sleep. Your body needs to feel safe. Your emotions need to settle. Your physical state needs to shift. When you're lying in bed with a racing mind, your first instinct might be to try to logically convince yourself everything is fine. But logic alone can't override a body that feels tense and unsafe. You need to work with the body directly. This is why breathing exercises work. This is why progressive muscle relaxation works. This is why listening to calming content works. These aren't just mental tricks. They're physical interventions that send new information to your brain through the body. Your heart, for example, sends more signals to your brain than your brain sends to your heart. Dr. Roland McCratty at the HeartMath Institute discovered that your heart has its own heart brain, a network of about 40,000 neurons. And the rhythm of your heartbeat influences your emotional state and your ability to think clearly. When your heart rhythm is erratic and chaotic, called incoherent, your brain receives signals that something is wrong, which triggers anxiety and prevents sleep. But when your heart rhythm is smooth and regular, called coherent, your brain receives signals of safety, which promotes calm and allows sleep. Right now, your heart rhythm is likely becoming more coherent as you relax. As your breathing slows and deepens, as the calming information settles into your awareness, your heart rate variability is shifting toward coherence. This isn't something you have to try to do. It's happening naturally as your nervous system responds to the safety signals it's receiving. Your gut, which we discussed earlier as your second brain, is also sending constant signals to your brain. When your digestive system is relaxed and functioning well, it sends signals of contentment. But when it's tense or upset, it sends signals of distress. This is why stress gives people stomach aches, and why deep calm often brings a sense of warmth and ease in the belly. As you continue listening, notice any sensations in your abdomen. You might feel a gentle warmth or a sense of softness. These are signs that your enteric nervous system is relaxing. And as it relaxes, it tells your brain that all is well, deepening your overall sense of calm. Dr. Candace Pert, who discovered endorphin receptors in the brain in the 1970s, later proposed that emotions aren't just in your brain. They're in every cell of your body. She called this molecules of emotion and showed that neuropeptides, the chemical messengers of feeling, circulate throughout your entire body. This means every cell in your body is listening to your emotional state, and every cell is contributing to it. When you shift toward calm, it's not just your brain changing. It's your whole body, down to the cellular level, shifting into a different state. Now let's explore something truly profound, the mystery of consciousness itself, and what it means to watch yourself fall asleep. Dr. Giulio Tononi, who we mentioned earlier, has developed a theory called integrated information theory, which attempts to explain consciousness in mathematical terms. The basic idea is that consciousness is a measure of how much integrated information a system contains. When you're fully awake, your brain is processing and integrating vast amounts of information. But as you fall asleep, that integration decreases and consciousness fades. But here's what's fascinating. There's a brief window as you're falling asleep where you can actually observe your own consciousness changing. You can notice thoughts becoming dreamlike. You can feel awareness becoming fuzzy. You can experience that strange state between waking and sleeping called the hypnagogic state. This hypnagogic state, studied extensively by Dr. Andreas Mavromatis in the 1980s, is characterized by unusual imagery, creative insights, and a sense of floating or drifting. Many artists and inventors, including Thomas Edison and Salvador Dali, deliberately induced this state because it's so rich with creative potential. But you don't need to use it for creativity. You can simply appreciate it as a beautiful transition, like watching the sunset. As you listen to these words and feel yourself getting drowsy, you might notice you're in this special state right now. Thoughts might be getting stranger. The boundary between your imagination and external reality might be blurring. This is completely normal and completely safe. It's your consciousness naturally shifting from the waking state towards sleep. Dr. Evan Thompson, a philosopher and cognitive scientist, wrote in 2015 about the phenomenology of sleep, the subjective experience of what it's like to fall asleep from the inside. He noted that we can never quite catch the exact moment of falling asleep because the very act of trying to observe it keeps us awake. It's like trying to see the back of your own head without a mirror. The observer can't observe their own absence, but we can observe the approach to that moment. We can feel ourselves getting closer to sleep. We can notice awareness becoming less sharp. We can sense thoughts losing their logical structure and becoming more dreamlike. And there's something beautiful and even spiritual about this if we approach it with appreciation instead of anxiety. Think about what's actually happening. You're experiencing the nightly dissolution of your individual consciousness into sleep. Every single night of your life, you let go of being you and drift into a state where your sense of self dissolves. And then, every morning, you reassemble yourself from scratch. When you really think about it, it's miraculous. Dr. Thomas Metzinger, a German philosopher, argues that the self isn't a thing, it's a process. What you call I is actually a constantly updated model your brain creates. And every night, your brain stops updating that model, and you temporarily cease to exist, not in a scary way, but in a peaceful way. Sleep is a nightly practice in letting go of self. Right now, you might notice that your sense of self is already getting looser. The boundaries between where you end and the world begins might feel a bit fuzzy. Thoughts might be arising without a strong sense of someone thinking them. This is all part of the natural dissolution that leads to sleep. Let's talk about what actually happens during sleep and why it's one of the most important things you can do for every aspect of your health. Dr. Matthew Walker, in his 2017 book, Why We Sleep, calls sleep the single most effective thing you can do to reset your brain and body health each day. During sleep, your brain doesn't shut down. It shifts into a different mode of incredibly important work. First, there's memory consolidation. Dr. Robert Stick Gold at Harvard has shown that during sleep, particularly during REM sleep, your brain replays the experiences of the day and decides what to keep and what to discard. It's like a librarian organizing the day's information, filing important memories away and discarding trivial details. But sleep does much more than organize memories. During deep sleep, the glymphatic system we mentioned earlier kicks into high gear. Dr. Maiken Nedergaard's research showed that during sleep, your brain cells actually shrink by about 60%, creating space for cerebrospinal fluid to wash through and remove toxic waste products that accumulated during the day. One of these waste products is beta amyloid, the protein that forms plaques in Alzheimer's disease. Poor sleep allows beta amyloid to accumulate. Good sleep clears it away. In other words, sleep isn't just restful. It's literally preventive medicine for your brain. Your immune system also does much of its repair work during sleep. Dr. Luciana Besidowski at the University of Tübingen found that certain immune cells called T cells work much more effectively during sleep. When you're sleep deprived, your immune function drops, making you more vulnerable to illness. This is why you need more sleep when you're sick. Your body is dedicating more resources to healing. Even your metabolism depends on sleep. Dr. Aaron Hanlon at the University of Chicago discovered that just a few nights of poor sleep can make you insulin resistant, meaning your body can't process sugar effectively. It's like giving yourself temporary diabetes. But good sleep restores insulin sensitivity. Your emotional regulation also depends on sleep. The amygdala, your brain's emotional alarm system, becomes about 60% more reactive when you're sleep deprived. This is why everything feels more upsetting, more overwhelming, more threatening when you haven't slept well. Sleep is literally emotional medicine. Dr. Walker's research also showed that REM sleep, the stage where most dreaming occurs, is when your brain processes emotional memories and strips away the emotional charge while keeping the memory itself. It's like overnight therapy. You wake up still remembering the difficult event, but it bothers you less. Sleep heals emotional wounds. As you think about all these restorative processes, all this healing and cleaning and organizing and strengthening that happens during sleep, you might feel a sense of appreciation for what you're about to give your body. Sleep isn't wasted time. It's invested time. Every moment of sleep is your body working to make you healthier, sharper, more resilient, more emotionally balanced. We've traveled together through the landscape of sleep science and psychology. We've explored how your brain works, how your nervous system responds to safety and threat, how your body and mind are intimately connected, and how sleep is a natural process that emerges when conditions are right. You've learned that effort is often the enemy of sleep, that acceptance is more powerful than struggle, that understanding yourself creates compassion, and that your body already knows how to sleep if you just get out of its way. But knowledge alone isn't the point. The point is the state you're in right now. As you've absorbed these facts, as you've followed this journey through the science and psychology of rest, your nervous system has been quietly shifting. Your cortisol has likely dropped. Your serotonin and GABA have likely increased. Your heart rate has probably slowed. Your breathing has deepened. Your muscles have released tension you didn't even know you were holding. These aren't just ideas. They're experiences happening in your body right now. And these experiences are preparing you for sleep, not because you're trying, but because you've created the conditions where sleep naturally emerges. Dr. Jon Kabat-Zinn, who brought mindfulness meditation into mainstream medicine, says that you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. He means that you can't control what thoughts and feelings arise, but you can change your relationship with them. You can stop fighting them and start riding them. Right now, you might notice thoughts still arising. That's okay. You might notice some alertness still present. That's okay too. You're not trying to force these away. You're just allowing them to be here, like waves in the ocean, rising and falling, coming and going. And in that allowing and that non-resistance, there's deep peace. As you continue lying here, listening or not listening, thinking or not thinking, being awake or drifting towards sleep, there's nothing you need to do, nothing you need to achieve, nowhere you need to get to. This moment is enough exactly as it is. Your body is heavy and supported. The weight of your head, your arms, your legs, all supported by whatever surface you're resting on. You can let that surface hold you completely. You don't need to hold yourself up. You can surrender to gravity. Let yourself be held like a child in caring arms. And as you rest here, you might notice that the distinction between listening to these words and drifting away from them is becoming less clear. Sometimes you're here, following along. Sometimes you drift away into your own thoughts or images. And both are perfectly fine. There's no wrong way to be right now. Sleep may come in the next few minutes, or it may come in an hour, or you may simply rest here in this peaceful state, which is itself deeply restorative. Dr. Herbert Benson at Harvard found that deep rest, even without sleep, provides many of the same benefits as sleep. Your body heals. Your nervous system resets. You're taking care of yourself simply by being here, in this state of calm allowing. As we approach the end of this journey together, I want you to know that you can come back to this place, this state of calm understanding, whenever you need it. These facts, this knowledge about how your mind and body work, these are tools you now carry with you. You can remember them. You can use them. You can return to this sense of peace. And if you find yourself awake again later, or tomorrow night, or any night, you can remember, you're not failing. You're not broken. You're a human being with a nervous system that's trying to keep you safe. And you can work with it, gently, kindly, patiently. You can create the conditions for sleep and then let go, trusting that your body knows what to do. There's no pressure, no deadline, no requirement to fall asleep right now. You're simply here, resting, allowing, being. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. Let your eyes close if they haven't already, or keep them softly open if that feels better. Let your breathing find its own rhythm, deeper or shallower, faster or slower, whatever it wants to do. Let your thoughts come and go like clouds across the sky, requiring nothing from you, just passing through. You are safe. You are supported. You are exactly where you need to be. And whether sleep comes now or later, whether you drift off in this moment or simply rest in peaceful awareness, you are doing beautifully. You are enough. This moment is enough. And now, I'll leave you in this space of calm, this space of peace, this space where sleep can find you whenever it's ready. Rest well. Be kind to yourself. And know that tomorrow, whenever it comes, you'll meet it with whatever rest you've gathered here tonight. Sweet dreams, peaceful rest, gentle sleep. May you find exactly what you need.